This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it's 5:30, Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. This is a call to order for the Planning Commission for the City of Arc City. Josh, would you please do the roll call?
I don't have one.
Oh,
Okay, Mary Benton,
Here.
Lloyd Colston,
here.
Brandon Jellings,
Here.
Ian Kuhn,
Here.
Kyle Lewis,
Here.
Cody Richardson, here, Tom Wheatley.
Here.
All right, now we move on to the consent agenda. First item is the meeting minutes from last month. Does anyone have any objections to the minutes as they were recorded?
Make a motion to accept. Second.
All right, meeting minutes from last month have been accepted. And now we move on to the public hearings. This is kind of why we're here tonight. So as everyone here is aware, we have put a comprehensive plan into motion, and this meeting is to get input from the public. We are here to represent the public, and any comments that are made will be noted. And there are certain rules that we have. You're allowed 3 minutes to speak. So after your 3 minutes is up, if that's not enough time, we can move on to the next person. I want everybody here to say what they have to say. So if 3 minutes isn't enough, we'll move on to the next person, and then we'll come back around. Okay? So we'll start with the public comments.
Actually, it might be easier if I do a little presentation first,
Okay.
if you all don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, just so we understand what we're all doing here. The last comprehensive plan was from 2013. Much of the content well, I shouldn't say much of it. A lot of that content has started to come out of date because now we're 10 years past when that was originally adopted. We usually like to review the comprehensive plan annually and then do major updates about every 5 years or so. So we're already behind the ball a little bit. We can kind of blame COVID for part of that delay. The Planning Commission here started in August 2020, so right in the heart of wonderful COVID, started reviewing that 2013 plan. And then we also used some other boards, the Beautification and Tree Advisory Board, the Equal Opportunity and Accessibility Advisory Board, and the Historic Preservation Board all had some input into the topics that concerned them the most. That happened throughout 2021 and into 2022. And after that, well, kind of at the same time, the Planning Commission was going over each of the chapters from that plan. And then we took the comments from those boards into consideration too when drafting this plan. And at the December meeting last month, this Planning Commission voted to set this public hearing, which is why we're here today. This public hearing is required in order to adopt update to the comprehensive plan. And this body would then make an approval or make a recommendation of approval to the City Commission. And the City Commission would have their final say on whether or not to adopt this plan. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of background on what the whole purpose of this is. Well, one purpose of this plan is to provide a basis for zoning decisions, patterns of land use, and actions affecting physical development of the city. And it also seeks to coordinate our publicly financed capital improvements, your streets, your water lines, sewer lines, those sorts of things, parks. And then it also helps to work with private developers when developing homes and businesses. Another purpose is to identify and articulate the needs and desires of the citizens, which is what we are attempting to do tonight. We also had some surveys. In 2013, there was a real detailed survey, but we also did a few others throughout 2021 and 2022 that helped out with that, getting a little bit more input as well. There was a few meetings that we had where we actually brought in some experts. Community health was one in particular, where we had a whole bunch of experts in the room to help us understand as a planning commission what was needed. So some of that's fact, some of it's opinion, but it's all important for the purpose of the plan, and it goes into the plan document. So the goals of the plan are to promote economic growth and land development, and we want to do that in a manner that protects and enhances the factors which already make the city a good place to live. So the planning area for this plan includes, of course, all of the city limits, but there's also an identified growth area around the city for which future land use maps are also created. And that's more to, again, it's just a planning area. It's not to enforce anything. It just helps us as a planning commission, as a city, to understand what's happening immediately outside of our borders. The important thing to remember is this plan is a plan. It's not a law. These are not regulations. And so it's supposed to be looked at as a policy guide and not a directive. So the city commission is, the idea is that they use this to help determine what they're doing when it comes to those difficult decisions about financing public improvements, for example. One of the things they should look at is the comprehensive plan in order to help them make that decision. And again, there's only so much you can cover in a plan. So we can't cover each individual project. That would have to be a separate plan. And usually the city commission does that in the form of the capital improvement plan. You may have heard, hopefully you've heard of that before. The key thing to this plan is we approach this as going to be an entire rewrite of the plan, but it got drawn out a little too long. And so instead, this is more of an update to that 2013 plan. It's not a total rewrite of the plan. And the key thing that the Planning Commission wanted to do as part of this process was look at some of the goals, rework them. One of the keys very early in this process is to make sure that the goals were all measurable and specific. Some of the goals and the actions to meet those goals in the last plan were a little too broad, in the opinion of the Planning Commission. So that's the idea. And so what we did was we divided them into priorities. So there's like a short term, medium term, and long term, which you set it in a different course of years. So short, it's like maybe 3 to 5, and then 5 to 10, and then 10 and beyond for the long. So the plan is made up of 8 chapters. And I'm not want to try to bore you here tonight, but I do want to tell you what's in the plan, especially if you've not actually seen a real copy of it. So the first 2 chapters are primarily your background information. This is, census information to help us, and then character information. So the different things that we have, like the facilities, the organizations that we have in the community, that's spelled out in these first 2 chapters. Of course, it doesn't cover everything that happens in this great city, but there was an attempt made to make sure that we cover as many different organizations as we could in there. Then the next chapter, chapter 3, talks about housing. And so obviously we're trying to encourage residential development that serves everyone in the community, not just certain pockets, not just certain income groups or ages. We want to serve everybody in the group or in the city. Now the next chapter is about economic development. Of course, that's to promote the growth of existing businesses and at the same time create an atmosphere that will appeal to our newer employees that are maybe coming to town. The next topic is parks, recreation, and natural and historic resources. So this was obviously a topic where Beautification Advisory Board and the Historic Preservation Board, that's where they put a lot of their attention. One of the goals from the 2013 plan was to look at the number of parks that we have in this town. There's a number of them that are not as developed as others. Some have basically nothing in them. And so one of the things that was taken into account over the past 10 years was to look at each park, figure out what's in it, what purpose it serves. And that is going to have to be an ongoing discussion. This plan does not get real specific on what to do with each individual park. That's probably more than what we want to do here as a planning commission. But there has been some studies of that. We also, obviously, that chapter talks about the historic district downtown, as well as some of the fringe area. There's been some surveys of that district over the past, 2017 is when we did the last survey. And so there's some mention of that, some updates to what was listed. Then probably the one that most people are really interested in is infrastructure and transportation. That's obviously where the most money that the city commission has control over, the city as a whole. And so that chapter talks about those items, water, your sewer, your streets, and there's some other things in that too, but those are the main ones. The goals that we have in that chapter are set to try to come up with a good plan on how to deal with those. But again, it goes back to that capital improvement plan that I mentioned earlier. One of the things that we probably need to look at is a really specific improvement plan for streets and sidewalks in town. The next thing we talked about was community health. And of course, a plan that's done in the middle of a pandemic probably wouldn't be much of a plan for the community if it didn't deal with COVID-19. So there is some mention of that, how to deal with it. The main things that we came out of that with was that public health should be a part of every decision that at least the planning commission makes. We need to look at how public health is impacted. And that's not just about sicknesses like COVID-19, but also how it affects people of certain groups. Like, are we able to meet the needs of our seniors? Are we able to meet the needs of all of our children? So public health is a broader topic than just simply disease prevention and control. But that's all discussed in there. We did meet, that was the meeting where we met with a lot of the health department was here. There were some doctors and such that were also here that we visited with. And the final topic of the plan, and of course the one that's closest to my heart as a city planner, is land use and growth management. The 2013 plan, of course, used that growth area as part of its part of the plan, and so the future land use map includes that area. And I'm just going to mention this because I don't know what topics concern all of you that are here. In 2013, it was discussed for quite a while about having zoning outside the city limits. Ultimately, that was removed from the plan. This plan also does not recommend zoning outside the city limits. We haven't identified a strong need to do that, just more of a monitoring what's happening outside the city. It's not enforcing city codes out there. But the main thing about land use is we want to make sure that the city develops in an orderly manner. And part of what comes out of this plan, the land use part of it, is recommendations for the zoning regulations. In 2013 into 14, the Planning Commission, and there's only like one of these members, I think, that was on the board at that time. But after we did the plan in 2013, we totally rewrote the zoning regulations, and that had not been completely done since the 60s. And so it was a massive undertaking. And part of doing that, you miss things. And so part of what we did in the intervening years was we made little amendments here and there. But we still miss things. And that's some of the things that we wanted to focus on in this plan when it was being developed. And what my plan as a city planner is to do is once we get this plan adopted, then we will look at the goals that were in this particular chapter and go back and look at our zoning regulations to make sure that that actually matches up. And then the other thing, I briefly mentioned this, is as part of this chapter, a future land use map is developed. That map is just, again, just what it's part of the plan. It is not a zoning map. And so if you've seen it and had a concern that maybe your property was going to be rezoned as a result of this meeting. That's actually not the case. That is a plan going forward. This planning commission would have a hearing in the future where we would discuss actual rezoning, if we need to do that at all. That was a whirlwind overview of, I guess that's all I have to say, of what the comprehensive plan is. I am open to any questions that you may have, as I'm sure any of these planning commissioners would also be open, and any comments you might have. So I'll turn it back over to Ian.
All right, thank you, Josh. I want to reiterate something Josh said, that the advisory board, the final decisions are made by the commissioners. We present our opinions, which reflect the public, to the commissioners, and they ultimately make the final decision. Okay, so we'll start with the comments, public comments. Go ahead, ma'am.
That was my question, was who makes the final decision on how the land is used? And have you rezoned? You haven't evidently, because your plan was 2013. Yeah, that was before. The Lincoln School.
So
So
Lincoln,
it's supposed to be a medical building for people in the south end of town. And how did that end up?
so we sent a recommendation to the commissioners
Okay. And they
to
will
be
make
used as a medical facility. And from what I understand, they either tabled that or decided against it.
Yeah, not the city, the health center.
They did?
The city did approve that zoning, that rezoning. And so it's a commercial zoning today. And kind of what he said, I think right now we're just waiting on the community health center, which is based up in Winfield, to make the.
I also believe they're waiting on input from the people that live in that area as well.
Then they need to have a hearing or a city, not a hearing, but a place. Well, I'm here tonight as a citizen. I am not here as a school board member, but I am a school board member. But I have something else in mind, but I just was curious about that when we were talking about zoning. Okay, how about the land across from Wilson Park, where the old hospital used to be? Is it still zoned as medical?
It is zoned as residential
It's
today.
residential now.
Yeah, in fact, that had happened in 2014 as part of this, as part of the last round.
So that has been rezoned. Okay. Okay, this is a lot to take in because I've not sat down and studied that. We just did a plan, you know. But what I have to ask is probably something that will be decided by the city commission. But I'd like to plant an idea in your heads about what could be used with one of the lands that one of the plots of land that that's in the city. And it's something we need. You want me to go ahead with that or?
Yes, ma'am. That's why we're here. We want to hear your ideas.
Want to hear my idea?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a retired teacher. 44 years of teaching, 8 years. Okay, I'll let you pass this around, but I got to keep these for the, just look at it. And then this is how you can find out what I'm talking about. Can I just sit here? That'd be all right? Okay. Our city needs a library. And if you'll visit any of the local areas around here, public library, Mulvane's is fabulous. That's what this is coming around. Our library is ancient. They don't have the means to get everything that they need with all the technology we have today. And like, this is a wonderful room. I am so proud of this building. I would love to be proud of a new library. And there's a thing on there how you get a grant for a library. And the Mulvane Library has already been paid for that quickly. And there's Wi-Fi, study rooms, meeting rooms, tutoring rooms, microfilm, notary, just almost anything you can get. It's there. And that was the idea I wanted to plant with the city commission. But that land was supposedly being thought of as residential for apartments?
I'll just kind of.
It's okay, it's okay.
No, in 2014, we really didn't know what we were going to do.
Yeah,
That was even before that Wilson Park master plan was
Mhm.
developed. And we didn't have a clue what we were going to do with that.
yeah.
It was shortly after that hospital was torn down.
It's large enough for good parking. It's large enough to have meeting rooms. It's large enough to have,
I don't mean to cut you off, ma'am. I'm sorry.
that's 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. That's actually 4 minutes, but we could circle back around. I just want to make sure that
Okay.
everyone
Well-
has a chance to speak.
Think library. There's a big movement for it in town. And we've all been quiet, but we won't be quiet much longer. We were told to wait, but we're not going to wait anymore. Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anyone else? Feel free to speak.
I will, if nobody else wants to.
All right, go ahead,
First,
Mr.
Jim
Seibert.
Seibert, 1816 East Justin, Ark City. First, want to thank everybody here for your time and efforts to get to this point. Conversation leads to, first of all, the first notice I had of this meeting was 5 o'clock this afternoon when I got a hold of my paper. I know the paper comes out in the morning. I don't get home until 5 and read it. A meeting of this importance needs to have notices put out, just like when I want to change zoning or do something else. There's legal publications and other notices. To wait till the last minute and put a notice in, you get 8 people from the public here. I think there's 11 or 12,000 of us that are interested in what you folks do. I'd like to recommend to this group that any meeting you have the purpose of the meeting, whether it be zoning or anything else, and be published a week or too early. I believe, Josh, you've been working on this meeting for a month. Enough said on that. The Planning Commission has never been used properly in Ark City. It's always been used to put out fires or to readdress something that somebody changes or wants to change or whatever. To me, using a sports metaphor, when I'm watching football, and I'm not a big sports person, but for the last 3 or 4 weeks, football has been very interesting to me. There are special teams that make every team, when you get to the winning team, like last night, it was the special teams that got them and made them. You're one of those special teams. Without your information going upstream to the city commission, to the other branches, and to the public, we get nowhere. This planning commission should be looking at, for example, we have about a 6 square block area in Sleeth Edition. Already has sewer, water, streets basically in there. It's where the old ballpark was. I know I personally have addressed that with some of the commissioners and the city manager. I know other people have had some ideas. Has this commission ever looked at that ground and recommended that it be zoned as a mobile home park? Well, that'll create some heat. Maybe a place for, I'm getting hit right now. There are contractors from all over the United States hitting our Kansas City, Kansas area looking for a place to put their campers. They're camping out in our parks that were never intended to be. I believe the 48 hours is the most they're supposed to stay in the campground. I mean, in one of our parks. And they're staying for weeks at a time because they have no place else to go. We have a couple of private campsites in Ark City that are full. We have over 150 contractors right now at Creekstone working on an expansion and remodeling there. I don't know how many the Evergy group is. Do you know how many contractors they brought in for they're replacing a bunch of lines and poles around. That's what you're seeing at the end of the bypass. Where are those people staying, living? Some of them in motel rooms, some of them in campers. Some of them are just literally going someplace and parking, staying with their generators and tanks and whatever. This group needs to look overall at the city of Ark City and say, what do we actually need? What should we be looking for? Mobile home subdivision is one of the quickest cures for low-income housing. It's no longer low income if you look at prices of mobile homes, but it is one of the ways other cities that have faced packing plant what do you want to call it, expanded quick growth that packing plants cause, that mobile home parks in. Show me any place in your plan where you say we ought to put a mobile home park. There's none. Where we should put a temporary park for overnight campers or week-long or something like that. There's none. Talk about housing. We all know Cali County, by the last report I saw, is 300 to 600 homes short of housing the people that work right here in Cali County. That's only our own workers. We need 300 to 600 houses. Brandon, you've done 48 units in the last year. Probably been 15 other units done in the county, maybe 20. So we're a long, long ways from filling the need. And yet there's no reasonable place. Brandon's about to fill up his, compass point. I'll get it in a second. And just bought out the Country Club Estates edition. That's a 25-year addition. It's 25 years to get it filled. It's not filled yet. Brandon's going to finish filling it. Where do we go from there? You're saying that you're not trying to create zoning outside, but we do need to create. Right now, I had some property, I sold it on 4th Street, 4th and Radio Lane, that I was told I could not put some apartments there.
Mr. Seibert, I don't mean to cut you off, but your time's up.
Okay.
We'll circle back around, but to add to
No
that,
problem at all.
we look at the city as a whole, and we have lots of priorities such as the water distribution system. We talk about housing extensively.
I bet you.
So specific issues do come across our talks and our conversations. But when we develop this plan, we have to incorporate very vague items, or we're not going to be able to include every single individual thing that needs to be addressed, unfortunately. But
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I'd like to address your first point and lack of notice for this meeting. Kansas Open Meeting Act requires publication of a notice of a meeting in a timely manner. And those notices are available to the public media. We can't make them publish the public notices, but we can put them on the city website. And I encourage you to use the city website as your primary source of information for these kind of meetings, not only with this body, but with the city commission and other boards and library board. Those are published. There's a calendar of meetings. You're going to know when the meetings are. I would encourage you to use those. We have a new public information officer we just hired this year, doing a good job getting these meetings out to the media. But I can't make my daughter read the paper. So I'm happy that you do read the paper, but I can't make the paper publish the meetings either. So use the city's website, for your current information. Thank you.
to go back to my point, that is why we're having this meeting, so we can get specific details that the citizens would like to see in the comprehensive plan. So the plan is also, it's a fluid document. So in other words, after it's written, it's not set in stone.
Right.
And we will not cover every issue specifically. But over time, as we get input from the citizens, we can address any concerns, any specific concerns that people may have. So your comments will be noted, and we will definitely include those in the plan. So
I just have one little thing to say. I agree with Mr. Seibert. I saw it in the paper at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Yes, it could be on TV. How many people watch that channel? I never turn it on channel 7. Sometimes there's not anything on there. Maybe if I'm running the channels. But you can't just say you got to watch channel 7 to pick this stuff up. You knew about the meeting a long time before today, so you could have put it in the paper last week
Can I just
So that
address
people
that
can
too?
know about it. You can talk when I get through,
That's fine.
so that people would know about it instead of, maybe I didn't get my paper till 5 o'clock this afternoon, so, you know. There's both sides to the argument, so I'm just emphasizing that there's better ways than drive down the street in a car with a loudspeaker on.
Would you like, are you done, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Josh?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that there was a public notice, and I know those aren't the most wonderful things. That was published back, it was more than 20 days before this meeting.
Correct.
There was also a little short article that was published in the newspaper, real similar to about that same time frame. This article that was published today was actually the newspaper that picked it up. In fact, if I can say, he's actually on the call, Mr. Showman is, on the website. But there was an attempt to do it more than just what happened today. That actually was not an issue in that city.
I'm not trying to make an issue out of
No,
it.
no, no.
I just would like to see more public, because to answer your own question, we used to spend money advertising. One of the reasons we only have a 3-day-a-week newspaper now instead of 6 is they don't have enough advertising dollars come in.
Right.
Some of this information could have been spread. You're sitting there with a notebook in front of you. I have seen no part of it. Maybe my fault. Maybe I should have been watching more TV. But I don't know what you're getting ready to pass as a comprehensive plan. I don't have a clue what you're getting ready to pass tonight. You're asking for our comment, and yet what you've done.
Okay, we're not passing anything. That's why we're here.
Okay,
If we need to have more of these meetings to get, the whole point of this is to get your input. This is the most people, we have these meetings every month. This is the most people we've had show up.
because I think we all thought you were getting ready to pass. I'm going to speak for 11 people here today, whatever's here.
And
But
the whole point of this is to have these conversations, and so we can address these
And I think,
issues.
I
include them.
started with, I congratulate you. I appreciate your time. I don't want to keep taking your time. I
No,
don't want to beat you up at all.
that's why we're here.
So I want to stop and say, any comment I made about not enough notice, probably my fault. But I think there are a lot of people that are not here that don't have a clue. Then when you ask for my recommendations, I am recommending, you are the group to look at Arc City and say, do we have a place to put mobile homes? Do we have a place to put apartment houses? Do we have a place to, is that something we could recommend, make it easier to happen? Because you say this is not cast in stone, it can be changed, and that's absolutely true. But I've been on the other side, I go to the city commission. Well, we talked to our planning commission, they didn't recommend this. It's almost taboo if we get, who do you go to first? I think you should be the first team on the field
I agree.
with planning. The second team should be the commission, or third team, or whatever team you want to put in.
That's exactly why we're here. Any comments made tonight
Okay, that's
will
fine.
be included.
Other people's time. Go ahead.
So might I ask, what suggestions do you have to get these notices out to the public, if any?
Has everybody spoke that wants to?
Well,
I'd like to address that, but okay, 2 or 3 things. First of all, I think the city commission, city at large, should put out a newsletter of the week or the month's events, whether it be the library board or the beautification or the historical group. There should be a letter somewhere. You mentioned the TV, and I do turn past that channel all the time, and I don't
How
ever
would
see
you-
anything
how
on
would-
the Yappy Dog.
how would you recommend that we send this newsletter? Because as
I don't know,
Mr.
it needs to be
Colson
sent.
stated, this
The
stuff
best,
is in
the
is
best
in the.
method I get
on the
is,
website.
I pick up, I love to go to auctions. I pick up this little auction flyer and I've got all the information I need for the next week. I don't know even what it's called, but it's free. A paper like our mayor, former mayor, was putting out for a while was excellent information. She kept everybody posted what was happening, where it was happening. And none of us are trying to stir up an argument or a fight or anything. We want information. We want to be able to talk as fluently about something as you folks are. And maybe if we see something that's gonna go over our dog, come talk to you about it, and hey, I don't wanna see this happen.
Yes, sir.
There's nothing you've done that I don't wanna see happen, but what I wanna see happen is more planning. Push the city the way you think it ought to be. Then let us object, let us take the city commission.
I agree. That's exactly why we're here.
I would also like to address that, and if I'm not mistaken, you asked, where is this book available to you? And is this book not available on the city website? And at the same time,
Like the city website you keep referring to, which website are you talking about?
there's only one, it's the only one, the .gov at the end of it. What's the URL?
Arccity.org is the easiest way to get hold of it.
Okay. The city,
I don't have it on there, I apologize. But
go there because that is your source of information. You mentioned the radio or television. I don't get the Cox TV. I don't. I rely on the city to tell me in official channels what, and this document was on that website. All you had to do was go there and meeting and click the link to open the PDF to read it.
You're talking about going on the internet to pick it up.
Correct.
There's people in this town that can't afford the internet at
And there's
$46
people,
a month.
there's services at your public library that give you the internet for free.
Can I say something, please?
Also, you could put it on the water bill statement. We just got one the other day.
I agree.
On the back of it,
That's,
telling us all about when they're going to be
Yes.
closed.
when I'm,
Everybody gets those, so it's.
I agree. And we,
Coordinating.
I think we've done that in the past
yes, and this
And-
meeting was mentioned
and
in the
it,
water
it,
bill
it didn't get good results, but those,
in the water bill?
and the electric bill.
can I say something real quick? So those items are an expense. The internet is very low expense. That's a lot of the reasons why we use the digital media. As we all know, we've transitioned from a tangible to a digital information society.
Yeah, I know, and the war paper.
But however, if not everybody has access to the internet, we need to put something in place to.
I'll address that too. At any time, if at any time somebody wants to come up to my office, I have a copy of this plan.
And Josh, your office is open to everybody, I know that. But I'm gonna tell you 11,000 people in town don't know that. And that's, I guess, my point and your point is there are many different ways we could be getting this information.
Let me add something else to
Go
that.
ahead.
So it is also the citizen's responsibility to do their due diligence
Correct.
and find out this information. It's very easy to obtain this information if you're looking for
So
it.
we've just changed the conversation from the one that says it's input to it's your responsibility to give us your input, to know when to tell them and where to go.
Exactly.
That's what the problem.
It's a two-way street.
It is,
That's
but
my
it's
point.
problematic to expect every citizen to know what we're talking about.
She talked back to you.
I'd like to add something. The
And can you
reason you
speak
need a
up?
new library,
Can you speak up?
yes.
Thank you.
I just can't stand it. I've got sciatica in my hip. It hurts to stand. Okay, that's why we need more access to technology for
Yes.
those who do not have it in their home. I saw this in 4 different places. I knew about this meeting 20 days ago. And you can go to our library now and get this. If you want to know when the library board meets, go to the library and find out. They have it available for you through technology, through the internet. However, I found it probably 3 or 4 different sites. I was doing research on it tonight. But that's what a library can do. It can bring people to your community. It can educate people in the community. It involves everybody. It can be used 365 days a year. And you have to find something about meetings, city commission meetings, planning meetings, school board meetings, whatever kind of meeting. You can find it at your library and they will help you find it. They'll print it off for you, give you a copy. And we have one now and they function quite well considering their facility. And so if you want to know, I'd like to know when the library board meets. It's up to me. I can either look it up or I can go down to the library and say, hey guys, could you print that off for me? And they will. They'll help you. That's what the library is for. It's for the citizens of our community. And it helps communities to grow when you have a really nice. but
We will
not a
definitely
good-
make that recommendation.
But
We will definitely make that recommendation per your request.
thank you. My group couldn't be here tonight. They're all busy. But I have quite a group, so we'll approach this.
I personally like, and Bob
Commission
mentioned it, the water bill put on the back of the water bill, the meetings the city's gonna have this month. Just January meeting schedule.
So I'm going to speak up. I'm
Go ahead.
Anna Atkinson. I am the new communications director for the city that was
Okay.
mentioned earlier. And I am the one who puts that together, and this meeting was in that, in your water bill. 100%. And there were also listed meetings that were available this month.
Was
for
it a
January.
card or was it?
It was,
Water bills, I think.
I don't know if it was
Print on the
on the, it was in every water bill that goes out to.
Was
every-
it a separate card or what was it? How did it?
I saw it.
There were two
I did not
sheets.
see it.
There was
It's
two
on the back.
sheets in the water bill this month. One of them was the water bill, and then the other one was the stormwater informational newsletter. Both of those went to every home.
And this meeting was on before.
This meeting was, there was a big ad on there that had this meeting.
Okay.
And I tweeted it
Yeah.
twice.
And I also had sent this meeting to all the news agencies, including agencies in Wichita. The TV stations have this information that this meeting was gonna happen. It was on our Facebook page numerously,
Yeah.
as well as
I like her.
the other.
Why did you?
She should have stepped up a while ago.
Nice to meet
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I've been like.
I guess my first question is, why are there only 11 of us in this meeting other than?
That's my point about due diligence
Because
of
not
the
everybody
citizen.
reads the paper, and not everybody follows it, and not everybody listens to the radio station,
And that's
and
exactly.
no one subscribes to Cox. So there's all kinds of communication channels out there. It's not my job to make you do those things, but it's your job.
I want to go back to, I want to thank you for doing your job.
Okay, thank you.
I want to recommend that we get to more people. There's a million ideas out here to how to make our.
Mr. Seibert, we have tried
I
multiple
know,
methods,
I'm
flash
not being
votes
critical, guys, I'm not.
with,
I know you failed tonight, okay? Because the evidence is right here.
Have you tried Facebook?
yes, I will agree with that.
It's everywhere.
Okay, that's probably where I get most of my information, because I look to see what's happening in our city.
This was definitely on the Facebook page for the city of Irvine.
And you'll see a lot of
Several
opinions
times.
on there too. There's, people will express their feelings. So there's probably a lot of public input right there
And
that's not in here tonight.
Yeah, the comments too, a lot of people were making comments that they were going to attend this meeting as well. And I don't know if those individuals are here, but there was a lot of interaction on social media about this meeting. So I know that it was information that
And
was
then they
given.
don't show up.
And for
We're just getting that way in
Yeah.
society.
And another thing too with advertising, like I'm not gonna speak for other newspapers, but the one here in our city makes us purchase advertising for things like this. And we feel that that is using taxpayer dollars, that whenever there's other issues that we could be putting out there, like, this can be out there, more economical ways, like the TV stations. And
Well, and it's
Yeah.
why the printed media is going away, and I hate it, absolutely hate it.
moving along.
But I do appreciate, I appreciate any input on how to do my job.
I
I do, I really do. That's why I'm here.
just saying, tonight is not a good example,
No,
okay?
it's not.
For anybody, not you, not me,
Yeah.
not anybody.
Have you
But
heard,
this is
have you
what's
heard the
happening.
cliche, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink?
That's
Yeah,
right.
That's what's happening.
I understand that, and all
But
the meetings get a lot of.
For your
temperature
considerations, we will definitely look for alternative methods to get our information.
Well, I'm
out.
gonna start watching my water bill post.
Okay.
I'm only looking at one thing, water bill usually. It's the
And
water
I want
bill.
to say it was on the back,
Yeah, I did.
on the back of the water
I'm
bill.
guilty, I don't.
Yeah.
I read the
It's there.
important part. How much?
And moving forward,
It was
you
there.
individually, ladies and gentlemen, know more people in this community than I do. You know a different circle. And you heard the recording start. And this meeting's being recorded. This meeting will be published on the city's website. So you can tell people, we were at this meeting and it was a good meeting. Was this not a good meeting?
It is a good,
And
we've got the kind of talk we should be having,
You can,
frank and open.
yes, you should have been there, but since you weren't, this is what happened. I think the city does a
Mr.
good
Colson
job.
has an excellent point. I think as citizens of the town, we are not just members of the planning commission. This is an unpaid position. We are also citizens of the city. So as a whole, maybe we should all do a better job of communicating with our friends and neighbors. Yes, sir.
Not to change subject, but, I mean, I was in the same boat that everyone else was as far as knowing about the meeting, but anyway, what I'm here for is you, suggested, you're talking about land use. And I was just curious what do you think is the city's interest in that 110 acres, that they had, that they brought up, or where it is at, I suppose, it's kind of hard to follow your directions in the paper.
Sir,
I assume is Skyline Road to the back of Forest Glen and then over to 8th Street, that partial that's open.
8 to 15.
I don't mean to cut you off, sir, but that was not brought before this commission. We had no knowledge of that. It was not on any of our
See, it
agendas.
isn't that one of the
I
things I'm trying
thought
to
this
say.
was a
Why
land use
wasn't it
meeting.
before?
Is that what it came up as?
This is for the planning commission, and part of that is land
What
use.
is
Yes,
the
sir.
planning of that acreage?
There was-
That is not part of our plan.
Yeah.
It's not in the city limits.
Who, can you tell me who owns it?
The answer to that is it was not brought before the planning commission, and it probably should have been. It is, that property is on the future land use map as residential. I will tell you that much. Beyond that, there's.
And you also said we're not rezoning anything? How are we not rezoning it if you're saying it's
It's not
residential?
up. It's not up.
It's not zoned. It's.
I actually personally bought that ground. Your question, it belongs to AC Industries, the development group that has done from there, all of the park that has the packing plant, Campac, my buildings, clear out north of Wichita, what I call Wichita Shortcut. We bought it with the idea of creating housing for industry before there was much housing there. The apartment house on the corner, we sold them their ground for next to nothing. The city took a sewer and water line up there to get that apartment house in there. Jellings property, what I call Jellings property, I keep going back, Compass Point was put in by a man in Wichita through the city getting a federal grant to help put the sewer and water in there. The grant paid for a big part of that, that deal. That fella, the one house, won't go into, whatever happened, ended up selling to you, right, the whole thing, because he just saw no end result. Brandon has turned it, I think by June, when did you say? It's gonna be completely built out. That will be 40-some units of housing out there. That is because all city residential housing that's new built under the Revitalization Act, he only pays 10% of the taxes for 10 years, the normal taxes. Taxes would have been $3,000 on one of those units, he's paying $300. At the end of 10 years, he will have created over $300,000 worth of taxes for the city of Park City. So the Revitalization Act, which I also was part of 20 years ago, getting established at Ark City for low-income housing and for fixing it up. And it's still available for that purpose. Most people don't know this, but you can go buy a house for $30,000 today, apply for the Revitalization Act, spend $20,000 on it, and when the county assessor comes down and raises your taxes, you go, nope, 10% is all she can raise it of the increase in value. That's what it works. It's a great tool for the city. And it's why you want to be brought into the city if you're a builder. We did the same thing. I was one of the owners of Country Club Estates 25 years ago. We did the same thing with it. It did not work. at the time. Timing is everything in real estate and business. Country Club Estates was an idea that was probably 15 years too early. We started it, we lost a packing plant, and we lost a refinery, two of our biggest income. That's right after starting. We couldn't have picked a worse time. I think we built 3 houses the first 10 years I was out there. It's changed hands a couple of times, and it's finally filling up. You've got one fella in this room that if it wasn't for him, we probably wouldn't have had 15 houses built in the last 10 years. We need to create more opportunities for more people like him. That's my feeling. My feeling being here tonight, the planning commission is the start of it. The planning commission could recommend to the city commission. Doesn't mean they're gonna approve it, doesn't mean they're gonna listen to anything they say, but they could be pointing out, we have a real problem here. We don't have, I keep using the mobile home park.
All right, Mr. Seibert, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
We need to keep moving. To answer your question, that land was not brought before us. As Josh said, it probably should have been, so we will definitely make note of that and include that.
But they did table it at the commission, which means they did not proceed. Once again, the community should have been at that meeting to speak against the city buying 101 acres. They don't have a terrific track
The
record.
quarterback called an audible, the referee said, wait a minute, folks.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question. That entire 101, all the acres, that's not city limits? City limits?
No.
At this point, it's not. If the city buys it, it's automatically a city.
And who says whether they're going to buy it or not? You guys?
Commission.
No, ma'am. We are an advisory board. Your commissioners will make that final decision.
But we should buy
The
it.
commission, this was not brought before us. We have not discussed this issue. It has not been our agenda. And that could be a timing thing. Maybe when that came up, it was between our meetings. At this point, the purpose of this is not to get to the specifics, but we will definitely include any details that are recommended by the citizens. The purpose of this meeting was to enact this plan so we can start making these changes. So a new plan hasn't been made since 2013. And we are here to get the ball rolling on these items that you're concerned about. So any input that you have, anything that you want to add to the plan, any discussions are
I
encouraged.
just have 2 quick questions. One of them is, again, regarding that land. I may have misunderstood the directions. It said it backed the Forest Glen development. So the land right north of the Forest Glen development is not city land?
Correct.
So Forest Glen is, but that
Yes.
isn't?
Correct.
Okay. And number 2 is once you make your proposals, you bring it and it's adopted, is it actually acted upon? Because it doesn't seem like the 2013 proposals were acted on, the capital gain, the capital, whatever.
So
So you're doing all this work and you're putting a lot of time in it, and I understand that. But from that point on, it will hopefully get adopted with probably some modifications. But will the 3 to 5 year plan, or the 5 to 10, or the capital plans have funding or proposed funding in order to be acted upon? Or are you just doing all this and you're going to be back in 10 years and doing it again?
the idea is to set goals with timelines.
Exactly.
So,
And capital
you know,
improvements usually are 5 to 10 years.
the thing about plans is they don't always go per plan. So what we've done is we've taken the old plan, and there were several items that were accomplished on the old plan. Not everything wasn't accomplished.
Right.
Some things were half done, some things were fully done. We took the stuff that was completed off the list. We modified some of the items that seem unrealistic to include more realistic obtainability with timelines and priorities.
I understand that things have to be updated. I was just wondering how much of it, after doing all this work, is actually going to be put into motion. And you have capital.
Now, that is up to the commissioners. Yes, we devised the plan. we send that to the commissioners and they take it from there. Now, we do have the commission's ear and we can kind of steer them in certain directions based on the input from the citizens. That's why we're here, to steer the commission in the direction that the citizens of this town want to go.
So because of the circumstances the way they are, right now you have absolutely no input on that 101 acres. That's just the commission.
As it stands now, it's not in the city limits. We can't include that on the future land use map. So
So the
there
city
there
limits
is
kind of
limited.
make- The city limits kind of make it you, because down 8th, it's city limits, and then it goes to city limits, and then,
Can you pull that back, Will?
Yeah, that may be the easiest way for me to do this.
While he's pulling it up, I'd like to make a couple points too. It takes more than just the planning commission and even the city commission. You also have to have an atmosphere that brings in developers,
right.
money, the builders,
Mhm.
the tradesmen. One of the things that college is working on right now is trying to get a little tech school, build up our electrician, plumber, HVAC, and so on. It's got to happen together. It can't be just this group, can't be just the city commission, can't be just the builder.
Usually
Takes
in
all.
a planning board, when they recommend long-term capital improvements to the city, and that's adopted, action is usually taken by putting X amount aside for not just building, we're talking about capital improvements to the city.
Now, as far as the purse is controlled by the
Oh, yeah,
commissioners.
okay.
Do not allocate any kind of
Slow it down
financial.
just a little bit, you're not showing
I mean, if they're
far
gonna
enough
adopt
up.
something, they should do something.
No other way.
This is the property right here.
Okay.
So this, on this map, this red dotted outline is the city limits.
Okay.
And so this was that property that they were talking about, the city commission was talking about, right in here. There's, this part here is not actually part of it. But this blue, that's what's on, this is the future land use map. This blue is residential. So the plan is for that area to develop as some form of residential.
But follow the red line. The blue is all outside the city limits.
Yes, on this map.
Yes,
Okay.
I pulled it up, this one on purpose, because that way we can see it.
The zoning.
So
But it
all
is
of
outside
all
the
of the blue is beyond city limits.
correct.
We'll pull up the city version of the future land use map. How about that?
That's scary.
And it's a big map, so it's gonna take a second. Or maybe a minute.
You have something you want to add? Did you want to speak?
Yes. Josh might answer this question. What I understood when I come to this meeting, it would be discussion on the 101 acres. The last city commission meeting I didn't go to, but I tried to watch it on GoTo. No video, audio is all I got, but I did listen to every bit of it. You're telling us here tonight that this planning commission had no input on that vote last week. I understand that.
That'd be correct.
That is
What-
correct. Officially, there was no formal
Okay.
agenda for us to discuss.
What I would like to know is who brought this to the commission that we want to try to buy that and we want to vote on it now and go ahead and move forward with it. To me, it was kind of a snap, bang, and I felt good that they got them to table it and cooler heads slow down a little bit and think about it. But Josh, who brought this all up all of a sudden and tried to get it to go through so quick without any plan?
I can't speak specifically to that, but I would encourage you to visit with the city manager.
Okay,
Because
He
it
knows
probably
me.
came from.
and I know him, but the people that stood up and spoke last week, kudos to you guys, because I thought that was moving too fast, and I've seen this happen in this town before. And boy, we need some cooler heads and slow down just a
Yeah,
little
I think
bit.
your commissioners made a wise decision to table that.
Yes,
until we can get
absolutely. But
more
I didn't
information.
realize you wasn't involved at
No,
all.
sir, but
That,
I'll tell you
I
what,
found out because Jim called me.
after this meeting,
And he's on
we will,
I know.
On this commission.
after this meeting, we will definitely bring that up, that needs to come
That was-
to us first. you know.
That's what I thought I was coming to hear about tonight, and that's probably wrong on my part. But I do go to the website, I read the agenda in the packet.
Yes.
And I knew about this 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just wanted you guys to know, I thought it was.
As long as he's got the map pulled up the way he does. I would love to see the planning commission look at those blue areas and designate them as possible areas the city could work with a developer to extend sewer, water, or whatever. I started to use a minute ago when my time got cut off. by
So when you
forestry.
say the city work with the developers, and I'm just
Okay,
having a
let me
conversation,
finish.
can you be specific?
I used my 4th Street Radio Lane property as an example. I wanted to put some apartments in there 5 years ago.
It's right in here.
City manager was Hernandez then, so I could talk openly about he and I's conversation. We got along great. He told me, Jim, we have a problem at your property. The sewer is overfilled. We're going to have to explode the sewer. You probably know the technique they use to try to get that sewer to take more sewage in that area. And he said, we really don't want any development in that area until we get the sewer large enough to handle the new affluent that was coming largely from the packing plant. Campac was added to that area. We've got areas like that there's no sense in me or anybody else trying to develop if there's not enough sewer capacity to take care of it.
And we have addressed these issues in the utilities and water distribution. That has been heavy topics here. The stuff that you're
And
bringing up,
I'm not trying to cure those problems. I'm trying to say, what areas in the blue would be a good place? I've mentioned mobile home park, I've mentioned apartment complex. I can imagine a 100-unit apartment complex might have trouble getting in a sewer up there by the.
so I brought a plan, I'm just speaking
No, I
frankly
want-
here. I brought a plan to put an RV park to the city. It's a property.
Inside Salem?
Yes,
Good for you.
and I've got no resistance from them at all.
No.
So a lot of these items are done case by case because we're just not aware of the intent of the builder's, plans until.
But you're planning on putting one in. You'd like to, if all the ducks are lined up.
I will
right.
say that the city had no qualms about it. They encouraged those kind of things. I don't think you're going to get a lot of resistance from the city if you're trying to build houses. Now, I could be mistaken, I'm not a builder, but, we have the abatement, the tax deferment, that's a big encouragement. We have reductions on the utility connection fees. These are all encouraging factors to bring in contractors. But ultimately, we have to provide, like you said, we have to provide those contractors with utilities and the city services they need to construct these homes. And that's kind of what we're here to discuss. Those items, the underlying items that need some serious attention. Nobody's talked about the broken water mains or the sewers being undersized or the potholes of the alleys. And those are the kind of items that we discuss at these meetings. So it's all encompassing.
Well, that's why I brought it up. You're very aware of what I'm saying and the sewer restrictions and the water problems.
Yes, sir.
So on. So at some point, I brought this up to Randy on this 101 acres. If we're going to spend $500,000 doing something, why don't we take care of the existing problems before we create?
And that's a discussion that we've had over and over as we determined
Does
that
this
we need
get
to
recommend?
fix what we have
Yes.
before we start expanding.
Well, not before. If you get a
We
proper
can't
deal-
expand the sewer until the downstream side is big enough to handle that,
Correct.
for example, or the water lines or the storm sewer. We also have an issue with floodplains here. There's lots of property that's still in the floodplain, so we've been working with the
But that's not.
FEMA to
Any other
correct
city.
those issues as
We
well.
have, I'll go back to my Sleeth addition. We have an addition down there that already has streets, sewer, water. To my knowledge, there's no restrictions on any of that. Don't know how the people in Sleeth addition would feel about a mobile home park coming into their home area. Don't know how they react to a overnight camping type campground. And I'm not talking about any sleaze thing. I'm talking about a lot of cities have put in, these people are coming in $50,000 to $100,000 fifth wheel campers to live.
I agree, but it's not the city's responsibility
No,
to
it's
provide
not,
these
but
facilities.
that ground,
This has
I've
to be
been
done by
told
the,
that ground is almost for free. I've made 3 different talks about taking it and what I could use it for and do, and got no reaction whatsoever. None.
Can
Table.
I bring, Jim, can we change this subject just a little
Sure.
bit? Because some of us we have a KU basketball.
Oh, no. There we go in the fourth thing again.
I guess that sets the
Yeah, I
timeline. and
understand.
doesn't-
Talk quick.
I do have another concern from the, for the planning commission. I did a little presentation, a little short video for the city commission. I live on North 14th Street, right where my driveway is. I have concrete, city poured to here, we have a drain. And then going south of me, it bumps out 12 feet of dirt. And I make sure it's grass, I have to mow it and all of that, make sure it's mowed. And I was just, hoping that maybe something could be done. Some of the streets over on North 14th, Linden and there, you can't get a school bus down there or 2 cars. I drive across my own yard, but actually it's the city's yard, I think. And I just, maybe some grading and some things like that, some recommendations for some of that upkeep and even, what do they call it? Something in seal?
Chip seal.
Chip seal.
Chip and seal.
Chip and seal, yeah. And I think most of us on the street those streets would really appreciate it because it seems like they're getting narrower and I'm having to pay to have that mowed and
I will say that a lot of these issues that we're discussing
should we?
are in the plan.
Plans?
Yes, I would recommend that you read it.
Can I get a?
And if you see
paper?
anything that's not in there that you would like
Okay.
Not
like to be
tonight. Can I
included.
come up, Josh, and get one from you? I'd like.
If you
to-
see anything in there that you would like to include,
Okay.
we won't recommend anything to the commissioners until we are 100% certain that we have all the input from the citizens that we can get. And as I said, this is a fluid document.
That's
So
what
we
I
can
went through.
make changes, we can make addendums as we move on. The point is, we want to get this implemented as soon as possible. We've been kicking this can down the road for a long time now.
Well, positive things do happen because before that, it was north of us, one house. That's where we used to live, then we built this. And I did bring it up and they looked at it and we did need a drain there because there was a kind of a ditch there. We had some flooding problems. And it wasn't long before we had the ditch and taken care of, mowed, gravel put into it, helped it drain better, and then we had the drainage ditch there, the place for the water to go, and then they extended and widened the street where we had dirt wide enough that all of that could drain off now, and we don't have a problem like we used to have. So things do happen, and sometimes they have to be gradual. You can't just jump in and do the whole big thing at one time. It takes time to get all this
Yes, ma'am.
done. And so, being patient and understanding things cost a lot of money now, a lot more than before. And I could go get a little bobcat and start digging over each time. We mow, we just mow a little less or something. But, sometimes you have to help yourself a little bit too. And be reasonable and understanding and be informed.
I agree.
That's my teacher's talk.
Well said. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Seibert? I'm sorry,
Yes,
we have.
in closing, no, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
I want to close with, seriously, thank you guys very much for the time and stuff that you spent. This is my first time at one of your meetings in a year or two, so I haven't spent much time till tonight. taking too much of your time, I know. I appreciate what you do. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I'm going to the city commission meeting next Tuesday, and I invite anybody that's here to go to that meeting to ask the city to start, line up. We've got a good team in our city. We've got heads of departments that know and want to take care of the city and do their job correctly. We've got commissions, planning commissions, we've got beautification, all these groups. We're wasting your time if we don't use you.
Right.
I apologize for any time I've wasted of yours tonight if they don't use what we've talked about tonight. If you don't go upstream with it and they don't use anything, it's the commission that's wasting your time, not Jim Cyber. With that, I'm not gonna waste any more of your time, but thank you. Bye.
That's why we're here. You're definitely not wasting time.
Okay.
This is,
I think it was very important though, is when we were going over this to update the 13 is realistic. I'm a goal setter. If it's unattainable in 5 years, then it doesn't belong in the 3 to 5 years. So it's very important that we have attainable goals where they belong and we can keep moving the city forward that way.
but having these specific items will help us to set some of these goals. Having your input on, I appreciate the details and stuff. That's kind of what we've been lacking. I mean, we look at it as the city as a whole, but I don't think this will be the last public hearing that we're going to have. I'm going to recommend that we have one more before we bring this to the commissioners.
And I'm very glad to meet our new, your title again?
I'm the communications director for the city.
Thank you. That in itself is going to be helpful and hopefully.
I think this gentleman over here has got something to say.
That's not a gentleman, that's Bob Matthews.
Mr. Matthews?
Well, there's 2 or 3 things that's kind of been discussed that I think needs to go into depth. Talking about we don't have any rentals. I can sit on my front porch and count 8 rentals that's been empty for 2 years. Get the landowners to do something. The next thing is the city's tearing down houses, that takes them off the tax rolls. Go to the president of the college. We used to have a tremendous, come on, Jim, include.
Carpentry
Oh, yeah,
classes, which they do have now.
VOTEC, the VOTEC, and the new president is trying to revive that.
They
We have
built
it.
a house once every year or once every 2 years. Once a year, sold that home, took that money to build the next house. We don't have that anymore. That's needed in Arc City. Your firm could probably use a plumber every once in a while. There's not any trained around here right now. There's no electricians.
I agree. We have a huge labor
Try to get a
problem.
carpenter, but you gotta go to the president of the college and say, let's put this program back in. Let's get on the landowners that these houses are sitting empty and say, let's do something with them or something. They're paying taxes on them. I don't know why, but they are. And get those renovated so that they can be rented. Yes, I know what a renter can do to your house. They can tear the living out of it. You wish you'd never rented it, but that's part of the game. But I do think the big thing is go to the college, get this program put back in, get those people in, get them out, and work with the city instead of tearing one down and taking it off the tax rolls. They can remodel that, sell it, and do something with it. That's moving forward.
My husband was a builder here in Arc City for a long time. He built a lot of houses with his brother and another builder out in Timber Lane, Lake Winds, in town, all around. And there were none of these incentive programs back then. In fact, we bought a 10th and 11th Street, 2 blocks there by Catawba Park. My husband put in the sewer system himself, got it all approved by the state. We donated it to the city because it was a very expensive thing, but we built like, I don't know how many houses there. But there's building going on in our city. And there's also improvement in a lot of houses because there is an incentive program on your taxes to help you get a lower tax rate for a while in your, like you said, your appraisal, whatever, your evaluation, or not evaluation, but whatever. And that's going on. Drive around and look. There's some good things happening in town. Lots of improvements in houses, lots of things being remodeled, new things being built. And I look at the housing situation now and think, man, I've got all these apartments down the street from me and on the next street over, and out north of town, they built here. There's a lot going on in our town as far as building's concerned. But as for somebody coming in from out of town, building and getting a tax break, they're gonna get a break. We're not gonna make a lot of money for a while on it, but the city will make some money and jobs and all of that goes with that. But look around you. There's things happening. There's things taking advantage, people taking advantage of these things, these opportunities to improve their property, make it better, and landlords need to do the same. We have a lot of rental properties. My husband and his brother go in and redo all of them and rent them, fix them up. I mean, it can be done. And as far as the carpentry program, it is going in at Cali. Anyway, that's the last word I had. It is going in.
I agree with you. Before,
We also have it at the high school.
to add to your point, before you change the world, you need to clean your own room. So we need to look to ourselves as citizens
Yes.
and not expect somebody to come in and save us.
Exactly.
But the city can only do so much. But these discussions definitely need to be had. I think we had some great conversations tonight, more input than we've had in the last 2 years since
Just
I've been on
one
this board.
question. Do you guys get to meet with the city commissioners as a group or
Just get
not?
summer. Me.
No, we write down our recommendations, but I think, to your point, I think we should probably start having a representative there show up at the meetings,
And the city commissioner.
That would be
Yes.
great.
just to make sure that our points aren't misconstrued and to make sure that everything that we say is covered at the meetings. You know.
I would welcome that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I've attended a few planning commission meetings, and when I first started, one thing that struck me was I never seen the city manager there, or I never seen one of the commissioners was there. To me, it felt like the city manager, at least the city manager ought to be there when you guys are discussing things. And one other question, you said this was a public hearing tonight, and we were all invited. Are not the planning commission and the city work sessions open to the public? Okay, because I have attended some planning commission meetings and it wasn't a hearing. So I would,
All these meetings are public. There's
Right.
No
and
restrictions as
I
far as
never
I
see
know.
anybody at them. That's my
Yeah,
point.
and that was my point earlier. We as citizens, we need to do our due diligence and take responsibility for our
Right.
city. So, and that's why we're here, to have these conversations, to get your input. We want to know what you think. This is your city. We represent you. We have our own opinions, but ultimately we're here to do your bidding. And that's why we're having this meeting right now. And it would be nice to see more participation from
Tell
the
your neighbors.
citizens. So I would suggest that you get the word out to your friends and neighbors, let them know what's going on. You know, word of mouth is the best advertising.
In the
there
way
is.
of getting word out, I want to address one thing Bob said. The college has a new president. Stepped into a couple of hot potatoes right off the bat, but regardless, we have a $4 million grant that has been offered to the city or to the college to build a new VOTEC school or build up a VOTEC department. The new president has taken it upon himself to add a FFA type department in Wellington, Kansas, and a full VOTEC school here. Using that $4 million, it's a matching fund grant. He and some of the people he's been working with have raised about $2 million of the $4 they need to match it. The total match, $2 more million in donations would give him the 8 million it takes to build both facilities, equip it, and teach it. I have personally taken on talking to a couple, three of the industries in the county who have been talking. They haven't made any donations yet. In the $200,000 or $300,000 donation category, I think we can make this thing happen. You talk about spread the word. I'm spreading the word tonight. One of the things we need to do, you're not responsible for, is get behind this college and let's make it grow a little more in the area we know we need development in.
I agree, and I have participated in many discussions with the college on this matter. I've offered to share my knowledge as some other tradesmen have, but this country is in desperate need of skilled labor. There's no question about that. A lot of the items that we're discussing, whether we have the money or not, is kind of irrelevant. If we don't have the people to do the work, then that's an issue that needs to be resolved first. And encouraging the college to have these VOTEC schools is definitely going to help. But ultimately, we have a new generation, and I have a feeling they're going to learn the hard way that there's no way of getting around, hard work and making an effort to improve your community, your society. So we'll see how it plays out.
I just have one more thing to say. Jim and I both know that whatever we recommend, it goes to the city commission. When you're sitting on that city commission, then it's a different story, right, Jim? What you could present, because Jim's been a commissioner before.
I agree.
I've been a commissioner before, and what we can present to the commission doesn't, they've got a broader picture of finances and everything, so.
Yes, sir.
I don't want us to say, well, you gotta do this, and then they don't do it. Then you start bad mathing your commission for something they couldn't do to begin with. So you need to take the other side of the fence as well as our side of the fence when you're doing this. So you can catch a little flack, can't you, Jim?
Oh, you can.
Well, ultimately, I agree with that, but ultimately, you're the boss. The citizens of this town, the government works for the citizens of this town. That's how
It takes a village to raise your children.
Yes.
It takes well-meaning people to grow a city. And I think we're all well-meaning. We don't always agree. We don't always see things exactly alike. I've never had a problem with that. My problem is people that do nothing. And
I
they're not
agree.
here tonight.
I agree. And that's an issue that's plaguing our country right now. But, there's whole other conversations that could lead into, but tonight, I just kind of want to focus on the comprehensive plan. So, is there any other comments? Anything from the
Move with adjourn.
planning commission? A second. All right, we're going to adjourn the meeting for tonight. I appreciate everyone who showed up. We welcome your input. You're welcome to, I think we're going to probably have another one of these meetings. We're going to take your comments that you've given us tonight and your input and include that in our comprehensive plan. Okay. And if we don't, like I said, if we miss something, we don't catch every detail, we can always go in and add it later. Okay.
Doesn't the city commission meet again on the 17th? Is that what I read in the paper?
Tuesday night.
And they said that they'll bring that up again,
If you
right?
understand my highlighted note.
They could, yeah.
Battle.
They didn't say they would.